Vunja mifupa kama bado meno iko. Vunja mifupa kama bado meno iko. Utakujalia ukishapoteza muda wako. Utakujalia ukishapoteza muda wako. Hello, hi, sasa mambo ni aje? I hope you're doing well. Welcome, karibuni to season 1, episode 1 of Just Saying with Chelsea. I'm Chelsea, and on this show I like to talk about topics that interest me, which mainly involve social, cultural aspects of life as we know it today. So pretty much anything from spirituality to entertainment, mental health, identity, and life. Just life. So if that sounds like something that you'd enjoy, I encourage you to grab a glass of something nice, kick your feet up, chill kiasi. I'm trying to go for a chill but mentally stimulating vibe here. Right, so we've all watched those high school movies that have regular characters you'd expect, like the nerd who was either male or female, socially awkward but was also really smart most of the time. The nerd had like one or at most two really close friends who made life easier for them. Then there was the jock, the football or basketball player who was the star athlete in the school. All the girls wanted to be with him and all the guys wanted to be him. More often than not, the jock was a bully who usually made the nerd's life especially hard, but no one cared because he's just so talented. And then there was a head cheerleader or singer or something in that line who was usually the bitch in the story. She was the prettiest, hottest, and often richest girl in school, and everyone secretly hated her but acted like they were obsessed with her. Now, let's focus on the last two characters that I've mentioned, the two stars of the school. In my opinion, these two are literally the same person in two genders. They both are literally at the top of the social food chain. They are both physically attractive, everyone loves them. But while the top guy is considered the big man on campus, the top girl is the head bitch. There is a level of respect and reverence that is often awarded to the man that is often replaced by fear or hatred when it comes to a woman in the same level of power. And because of this, women often find themselves between a rock and a hard place, because society says it's okay, you can lead, but don't lead too hard so no one thinks you're a bitch. And that is what is commonly known as a double bind concept. So, what is the double bind? Well, I'm glad you asked. According to our trusted source, Wikipedia, a double bind is a dilemma in communication in which an individual or a group receives two or more reciprocally conflicting messages. Now, I am well aware that all of us face double binds in one way or the other in our daily lives, but my focus today is on the dilemma specifically experienced by women at work. Capiche? I just had to put a disclaimer out there for all those what about us people. Like, I get it, everybody's struggling, but I'm just focusing on this specific issue right now, okay? So where was I? Right. Charlotte Taylor, a senior lecturer in English language and linguistics at the University of Sussex, published a research study in 2017 titled Women Are Bitchy but Men Are Sarcastic, Investigating Gender and Sarcasm. In that paper, she investigates and analyzes the relationship between gender and mock politeness with a particular focus on sarcasm and sarcastic behaviors in general. So she was pretty much trying to find out if men really are more sarcastic than women, as some studies suggest, or is it that the same mock polite behavior in women is not referred to in a similar manner as it is for men? She bases her findings by carrying out corpus linguistics, which is a methodology that involves computer-based empirical analysis of language. Yeah, you learn something new every day. She then paired this up with a good old survey that was completed by 455 people, where 277 identified as female, 175 identified as male, and 3 did not identify with either. Some of her findings were quite insightful. For example, the term bitchy ranked high when describing men, but it was only used once when describing, ranked high when describing women, but only used once when describing a man. Words like sarcastic, mean, rude were used to describe women, and words like joke, sly, and random were used to describe similar behaviors in men. In her summary, she states that bitchy has a more negative semantic prosody than sarcastic. This is not in itself surprising, but it suggests that when women behaviors are the same and the choice of metapragmatic label is gendered, females are being judged more unfavorably than males. This points towards the underlying impact of sexism in society and the greater censure applied to female behavior. Furthermore, it is also important to note that the data from the corpus and the survey shows that these sexist evaluations are applied by both men and women. From time immemorial, we have heard of women who are hard to work with, mean, rude, women who are just too much. From Nicki Minaj to Hillary Clinton, Tiwa Savage to Kenya's very own Mandy Saro, the mean girl boss has been called out one too many times. What I find interesting is how come we don't have any real examples of men who exhibit similar mean and bully-like tendencies? The double bind facing women is that they often have to play into one of two roles at work: the mean girl boss or the motherly one who's nurturing, sweet, and kind. So women are pretty much damned if they do and damned if they don't. Either way, you're going to have to sacrifice part of yourself to be able to survive. In a research study titled How Emotions Are Made, written in 2017 by researcher Lisa Feldman Barrett, had subjects look at faces of men and women and assess their emotions and the context of that emotion. When looking at male faces expressing emotion, respondents said that the man was just having a bad day, or something bad had happened to him. Whereas when women expressed emotion, they were described as neurotic or unstable. Feldman Barrett found that if women expressed too much emotion, they were seen as unsuitable for leadership or unstable in some way. Emotional men were seen as mostly rational or level-headed. But if a woman did not express enough emotion, they were seen as not warm, empathetic, or trustworthy, what is known as the Hillary effect. Apparently, a woman can get in trouble for expressing emotion and for not expressing emotion, which is a toxic double bind. In January 2022, Miss Mandy, a famous radio show host, YouTuber, and digital influencer in Kenya, was called out on Twitter by Kome Getobu, a former colleague of hers, for being mean and bullying him while they worked together. Now, what happened was, Mandy Sarah posted a tweet, and I'm just going to read that tweet out for you. In the tweet she says, "I truly dislike people who aren't big on accountability. You can't go around doing things that hurt people, then are afraid to be accountable to your actions. You're stunting your own growth." To which Kwame quoted the tweet and said, "Just sitting here watching the person who constantly terrorized and brutally bullied me the entire time we worked together talk about accountability. This woman would constantly call the entire office to stop to make fun of my clothes when I didn't have enough money to buy the trendy shit she and her friends thought only those deserving to be in her presence should wear. This woman made up such hurtful nicknames for me behind my back and laugh in my face because I couldn't afford to order fancy food for lunch, so I would cook my own food and carry. This woman felt because I didn't have an accent as well polished as hers, therefore was not deserving to be a radio presenter like her, and would happily remind me whenever I crossed her, which only happened when I breathed near her. Now, it is utterly undeniable that Miss Mandy's actions towards her colleague were wrong, unjust, and yes, very mean girly. She did apologize for her actions, which confirmed Kwame's accusation, and we can get into the verity and honesty of her apology in another episode because I have my own 2 cents about that. But what sparked my interest in this case was the punishment, or you could say the consequences, she faced as a result of this. Please note that I am not absolving her of her misgivings. I don't even have the power to do that really. And neither am I saying that she should not have been criticized for her actions. My thing is, why are we so mad when women are bullies and mean, but we always seem to just take it when men do the exact same thing? This unequal treatment is also not only made by men, but by women as well. We all seem to be able to accept men as rude, cruel, aggressive, but we can't offer the same grace to women. Why? Could it be that women are culturally and traditionally viewed as submissive and nurturing while men are not? In 2022, I thought feminism fixed that. In his book, How Can I Get Through to You, which I actually really love, Terence Real describes the damage done through the traditional socialization of boys and girls. He writes, if you ask an 8-year-old girl what she wants on her pizza, Catherine Steiner of Harvard Eating Disorders explained, chances are she will tell you, I'll have extra cheese and peppers. By the time the same girl reaches 11 or 12, the answer becomes, I don't know. And when you ask her at 13, what does she say? What would you like on the pizza? It is no coincidence that the loss of voice in early adolescence corresponds with the first outbreak of many mental health problems. The women's movement has thus far paid little attention to some of the more troubling aspects of compliance with the traditional role. End of quote. Remember the 2 roles I mentioned earlier, the bitch and the mother? We teach women from an early age that if they don't conform to the role of the latter, then we simply cannot accommodate them. And even feminism itself has not done much to solve this. Clearly, we still have some work to do when it comes to our views on feminine and masculine values, especially in the workplace. The language we use also plays a huge role in determining and describing our views toward each other. Remember the bitchy, sarcastic study? We literally call men sarcastic and women bitchy for the exact same behaviors. Deborah Tannen, a linguist at Georgetown University, says that language reflects the cultural beliefs of a particular moment in time. So, the words we use to describe women tell us something about the way we perceive women in power, and whether we think they're supposed to be there in the first place. Right, so what now? Where do we go from here? In an article titled Double-Bind Dilemmas for Women in Leadership, writer Stephen Fearing presents 3 strategies for dismantling the women's leadership double-bind. The first one is interrupt bias, which basically means speak the fuck up when you hear colleagues use words that reinforce negative gender stereotypes, like she's too emotional or she talks too much. Up next is using the same standard for women and men when evaluating employees. Reverse the gender of the person you are evaluating to see if it makes a difference in your language or assessment. Lastly, be a visible champion. Promote the accomplishments of women and actively advocate for their development and advancement, thus serving as a role model for others to do the same. Now, I know my copy-paste work is so good, y'all didn't even notice the past few sentences have literally been copied word for word from the aforementioned article. But in my son's copy-paste opinion, I feel that the words that we actively use in daily regular conversation play a huge role in feeding the unjust and cruel systems that rule our world today. We have words like mean girl, but no mean boys. And the fact that even saying mean boys feels weird just speaks to the big changes we need to make when it comes to describing women. So let's try and pay more attention to things like that first, like the words we're using, and then proceed to change the world, okay? Baby steps, guys. Baby steps. Anyway, if you've listened up to this point, thank you so much. That's episode 1 and done of Just Saying with Chelsea. What are your opinions? What are your thoughts? What do you feel about this? Do you think double bind challenges against women at work is a thing, or do you think we're all just making this shit up? What's your opinion? Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? Let me know. Comment, share, whatever. Let's talk about it. DM me on Instagram. You can follow me on Instagram at justsaying_pod. And yeah, thanks y'all. This podcast has been produced by Squared Studios, artwork by This podcast is produced by Squared Studios, art by Jack Mackenzie, CEO of Mograph Studios. Scratch that hole. This podcast is produced by Squared Studios, artwork by Jack Mackenzie, creative director at Mograph Studios. And this episode has been written directed and edited by me, Chelsea. So thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for reading, because this is on the blog too. So yeah, thank you so much. Episode 1, Just Saying with Chelsea, it's a wrap. Bye.